Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly nothing is as it was yesterday. Your money is losing value at lightning speed. Your bank limits your withdrawals. Rents are exploding, food prices are doubling, and protests are filling the streets. Populist parties are taking over parliaments. Neighbors look at each other with suspicion. And in the background, the danger of the largest European war since 1945 is growing. This may sound like a dystopian film, but it is exactly the pattern that has pushed great civilizations to the edge of collapse before. Rome, Weimar, the Soviet Union. And these are the same signals we are seeing across Europe right now. In this video, I will show you the anatomy of this looming collapse. And at the end, you will receive a clear playbook to protect your business, your family, and your wealth. My name is David Paulson. For almost 20 years, I have been structuring entrepreneurs and their families internationally, helping them to protect their wealth from taxes, political risks, and exactly the kind of crisis that are unfolding in Europe today. Everywhere on the continent, cracks are appearing in the pillars that hold our societies together. Trust in governments and institutions is collapsing. Economic inequality is rising rapidly. Political extremism is spreading. In France and the UK, barely half the citizens are still satisfied with how democracy works. In Germany, traditionally the anchor of stability, only 8 out of 10 say democracy still functions. Across Europe, 1/3 of all voters now choose populist parties, up from only 12% in the 1990s. The middle class is being crushed. Wages stagnate, living costs explode. Since 2015, housing prices in the European Union have risen by 50%, rents by 18% in just 10 years. For young families, owning a home has become nearly impossible. Meanwhile, the wealthy grow richer through bubbles in real estate and stock markets. This is not random. Historians describe the same recurring cycle over and over again. Money loses value, debt piles up, the middle class disappears, populism rises, trust breaks down, elites fight for too few positions, capital flees abroad, and in the end violence erupts. Rome, Weimar, the Soviet Union. The pattern is frighteningly consistent. Europe is not immune. After 2008 and again during the pandemic, the European Central Bank printed trillions. The result was inflation reaching 10% in 2022, a record that massively eroded purchasing power. Coins still look the same, but they buy far less. Inflation is nothing more than modern coin clipping, a hidden tax on every euro in your pocket. As money loses value, living costs explode. Families spend 40% or more on their income just on housing. Many can no longer afford to heat their homes in winter. An official of the European Union warned the housing crisis is dividing our societies, and it may become a danger to our democracies. Into this vacuum steps populism. Citizens who feel betrayed by the elites turn to offerings of easy answers, right-wing movements, and they target migrants and the EU, while left-wing movements promise to punish greedy corporations. Populism feels empowering for a moment, but accelerates collapse by undermining institutions and the rule of law. At the same time, trust is collapsing. Social cohesion disintegrates. Neighbors no longer trust each other. Media is no longer believed. Half of the Europeans today think their society is corrupt or broken, and while trust collapses, Europe quietly prepares for war. Another driver is elite overproduction. Europe is producing record numbers of academics, lawyers, and politicians, but there are too few top positions, and entire professions are already being replaced by artificial intelligence. The result is a generation of frustrated elite aspirants. We see PhDs who are working as waiters, lawyers without jobs, educated youth without prospects. Too many elites mean power struggles at the top and radicalization at the margins. The wealthy are already taking action. They move capital abroad, buy gold, or immigrate altogether. In 2025, the United Kingdom leads the world in millionaire immigration, losing over 16,000 in a single year. France, Spain, and Germany are losing hundreds each. Capital flows to Dubai, Singapore, Switzerland, and the United States. And as the wealthy leave, they take the tax base with them, forcing governments to rely even more on money printing. A vicious cycle. All signals are flashing red. Currency debasement, a disappearing middle class, populism at record highs, cultural breakdown, elite overproduction, and the capital is leaving. And on top of all of this, the largest war in Europe since 1945. Russia's invasion of Ukraine drains billions, weakens economies, strains budgets, and divides the EU and NATO. If this war escalates further, it could be the shock that brings the unstable system down. History shows empires almost always collapse in or after major wars. And Europe is standing at exactly that point, right before your eyes. Now picture this. Europe's economy is like a badly injured patient pinned against the wall by a car. The pressure keeps him alive. Remove it too suddenly and he dies instantly. Leave it too long and he bleeds out slowly. Europe's debt is that car. Cheap money and money printing kept the system alive. Take it away and everything collapses. Keep it going and it dies slowly. The numbers are clear. The Eurozone debt is 90% of the GDP. Italy stands at 135%, Greece at 170%. Historically, anything above 130% is called the death zone. Nations almost always default or restructure. So what options remain? Tax the rich, they will leave. Squeeze the middle class, they will revolt. Print more money, inflation eats everything. Weimar 1923, Greece 2010, Argentina 2001. Europe is heading down the same road. Italy already spends 3.5% of its GDP on debt service every year. One more rise in interest rates and the math becomes deadly. Lower the interest rates and inflation will kill it. But collapse is not only about numbers, it comes from within, when citizens lose trust and cohesion. In Germany, the CDU politician Walter Lübcke was assassinated by a neo-Nazi in 2019. And now, the far-right AfD is now the second strongest party. In France, yellow vest strikes and migrant riots shake the country. 2/3 of the population believe France is in decline. Italy is governed by a post-fascist party. Eastern Europe is remaining massively while old ethnic tensions return to the Balkans. Back in 2010, historian Peter Turchin predicted in the 2020s would be a decade of instability in the West. Elite overproduction, mass poverty and debt would drive crisis. That is exactly what is unfolding now. And migration adds further strain. The refugee crisis of 2015 split Europe apart, and today the same issue fuels bitter conflict. Right-wing populists weaponize it, left-wing movements push cosmopolitan ideals, and the bond of common identity is torn apart. The result is violence. It's always like that. Politicians have been assassinated in Germany, France and England. Surveys show that 40% of young French citizens even consider civil war possible. Many young people now dream of socialism, but we know where socialism goes. History shows it crystal clear. The Soviet Union collapsed. Mao's China was killing up to 45 million people. Venezuela lost 75% of its GDP and sunk into hyperinflation and mass poverty. Socialism always ends in poverty, corruption and violence. And how will it be in Europe? Europe's debts are already too large, demographics too weak and trust too broken. Growth alone cannot fix it. So what remains is a playbook, a plan for how you personally and your family can survive this collapse. Crises destroy the unprepared, but reward the vigilant. Rockefellers, Rothschild, Soros all made their greatest fortunes in chaos. The strategy is clear. Protect yourself with hard assets, gold, real estate, equities and crypto, because cash will be devalued. Build mobility with a second passport or visas and offshore accounts, because capital always flows to safety. Choose the right location, safe havens like Switzerland, Ireland, Scandinavia, the UAE or parts of Asia. Invest in skills like technology, medicine, trades and IT, artificial intelligence, because knowledge cannot be devalued and you can move it cross-border. And create parallel systems, networks, cryptos, so that you always have a plan B. All signals are flashing red. Debt, inflation, populism, collapse of trust and war in Europe. And I'm telling you, Europe is not immune. History does not forgive the unprepared, but it rewards those who are ready. If you want to protect your wealth, your business and your family, do not wait. Work with companies like Paulson and Partners. We will show you how to not only survive this collapse, but to come out stronger on the other side.